Welcome to RetroLogic. I'm Sam Wagers here with John Cummins and Shannon Eno. How are you guys tonight?
Doing good.
Pretty good.
Doing good. It is Season 4. Spring is upon us. We're all losing our voices, so I apologize for that up front. I'm not the only one. I've been fighting off a pretty bad cold, but otherwise I'm doing okay.
No. Surprisingly, mine's better than it was. Actually, I have a fuller voice than Tuesday, I feel like. It was pretty raspy when we did the Game Boy
I'm
episode.
at the phase now where I'm normal during the day, and I just get really stuffy at night.
Did you load up on cold medicine again? Are we going to have to wake you up halfway through this?
No, I just been eating lots of peppermints.
And I feel like I'm at the beginning of what you guys are partway through.
Gosh.
So,
Yeah, I've actually been transmitting it over the internet to you. The virus has evolved. It can go over fiber optic cables now.
Oh man.
But RetroLogic is not just a podcast. It is a whole community of retro gamers. We have an active, friendly, and free Discord, giveaways, contests. And you can dive into our whole family of retro podcasts like RetroGroove, all about music history, Filmlogic, about streaming and movies, and On Topic Retro, a podcast dedicated to one video game per episode, hosted by our very own John Cummins. And you can find all of those at the website retrologic.games, which is active once again.
Active.
Hooray.
It lives. It lives.
I just checked.
Yeah, now we have to do a sanity check every time we tell people to go to the website. We have to quickly make sure that it's still up. So we're not sending them to.
Well, it is actually the easiest, case in point for having a website. It is the easiest way for me to make sure I am up to date when I talk about the Housekeeping, which is next on our list. So Filmlogic just did their 16 franchise bracket. RetroGroove has another Expand My Mind episode on Max Martin. And On Topic Retro just posted the Game Boy anniversary episode, which both you guys were in.
Yes.
That's right.
It's a good time. Talking about the Game Boy.
We've been joking that Shannon has become also a host of the On Topic Retro podcast because he's been pretty much on every show for the last, few months.
Definitely anytime Zelda's involved.
Yeah, and quite a few of the in-between shows, too.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of On Topic Retro, we just recorded and I just got out today the Game Boy 35th anniversary episode. So that is out and you can listen to it right now. If you're listening to this, you might want to wait till you're done listening to this and then you can go listen to that. And then we also have we're still running the Pokemon X and Y Retro Rewind Champions contest. If you are playing Pokemon X and Y with us as part of the group, you can keep track of your Pokedex numbers and submit. Later on, I'll probably give a date here pretty soon when I feel like we're getting closer to the end to tell everyone, hey, you can probably go ahead and start submitting some numbers for your Pokemon caught in your Pokedex. And we'll see who at the end of this competition has caught the most Pokemon in their run, and that person will win $10. Seems like I've noticed at least a few people on the channel and Discord are quite a bit of ways ahead of me. I'm still right about at the second gym. I found it finally. That's I think it's the longest time between gyms in Pokemon games that I can remember. Usually, the first couple are bam, bam, bam. They're all right there in a row to kind of get you used to how Pokemon works, that there's going to be a gym there. And then in this game, there's 2 hours in between the first gym and the second gym. So you're just stranded, wandering around. You go to a castle, a cave, a mansion. It's kind of a weird setup for Pokemon. But anyway, as we're playing, feel free to submit your Pokedex numbers at any time you like. I will give you a date, though, when we get closer. And then Sam, I just noticed that note. I do plan on doing a On Topic Modern episode on Unicorn Overlord. I was waiting on some more people to get done, just in case they wanted to hop on. I know that Sam and I are done. I know that Adam is done.
I'm holding up the rear.
Well,
I'm getting there. I love the game. I just have
and
so
honestly,
many hours.
there's really not enough story that I would worry about like completely spoiling you on anything if you did want to talk about it in the show, or even if you just wanted to give us a quick summary of your experiences with it, and we can read it if you don't want to come on if you're not done by that time. But I'm trying to think of, can't think of anyone else in the community that was playing it offhand. I'm sure there was, but anyway, that's coming in the future. That's definitely one that I want to do. Very impressed with the game, and I'm ready to talk about it. And then that bottom one's yours, because I have no idea what's going on there. That's news
Star
for
Wars
me.
Dads, yeah. So Star Wars Dads, kind of going off the Nintendo Dads family of podcasts as well. So Just Being Bruce from the Discord and I are going to be starting up a Star Wars podcast coming out soon. Episode 0 is supposed to be releasing on May the 4th. And we'll just be enjoying Star Wars. It's just about two dads who like talking Star Wars and don't want to get into all the toxic stuff and just want to talk about things that they enjoy, even things they maybe don't enjoy as much, but in a more positive manner than what you might see a lot of other places. So we can look forward to that.
So are you guys going to be like breaking down stuff in the movies, or
it'll be kind of a variety. Bruce is really been his vision. And I've just kind of jumped on board more recently. But he wants, he's got some great ideas. We're going to be even doing some games on there, trivia related type fun stuff, but some other stuff as well. Games, gonna have some guests on to kind of talk about some different things, talking about, just what's kind of going on with the games and the I was going to say movies, but who knows when the next one of those will be. But the shows and anything that just kind of comes out, Star Wars adjacent.
Well, there's plenty of legacy content too.
And then there's
dig into all that stuff that's not canon anymore.
More than enough legacy content to fill many years. And so, yeah. So we're looking forward to kind of doing that. So, like I said, if you just kind of watch the Nintendo Dad's feed, I believe it should be there come May the 4th. We'll just have kind of an introductory episode.
Nice.
Go from there.
Look forward to that. Sam, are you going to be streaming anytime soon, or are you waiting to get over your cold, or waiting for your move?
I'm still fully moving in. I own a home now. I'm not technically homeless.
I was going to say, you're not homeless anymore?
In the garage. All my stuff is in the garage because I'm having some people put new flooring in another week. So I don't want to move the furniture onto the floor and then have to move it off.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I guess at least you were out of your previous house and had somewhere for your stuff to be for at least a little bit. I had like a really weird situation with my last purchase.
Yeah, I actually got it moved just before I would have been billed for another month of storage.
Nice.
So
that's good.
It was a pretty seamless process.
Yeah, when we moved to this house, I was like my house was being sold at the same time as I was buying this house, my previous house. And the sale of my old house went through before the purchase of my current house. So I had to have all my stuff out of there like that day before, and luckily the people that I bought this house from had already moved out, and I think they moved to Florida or something, and so it wasn't a big deal. They weren't here anymore, so they messaged me the key or the code to get in the garage, so I could move my stuff into the garage. I didn't have keys to the house, so I couldn't get in the house. So they messaged me the code. I moved my whole house into the garage and then had to move everything from the garage into the house later that day after I got keys in hand. So it was like the most stressful thing ever. Like I moved like 3 U-Haul loads of stuff in the middle of the night, almost like trying to get stuff into that garage. It is a whole mess. I don't ever want to move again. I'm like very reluctant to. I've become like a hermit. Like this is like my cave area now. I don't want to.
I acknowledge I will have to move again. This is definitely not my last move. I'll probably be in this home for maybe 5 years tops. But.
Yeah, I mean it's at least you're going solo right now, so you don't have as much stuff. Like I got to move 5 kids worth of stuff. I have no idea if that will ever even be able to happen.
Right. Might just have to be like, all right, guys, we're leaving everything here. Everybody gets a bag.
Yep. You guys get bags.
Quite the opposite of being rushed. I wish I could just get it all done and over with, but it is what it is. Just waiting for all the pieces to fall in place.
Awesome. Well, let's see. We're going to do so. We're going back to. We're adding a section to the show that we don't normally do, right? This is a segment that
we used to do.
We used to do.
It's a revival.
It's a
remake.
Yes, we're getting back to some of the things that we used to do in the show, and we definitely thought this one might be more, somewhat valuable. It's always something I enjoy listening to in other shows, but we're going to talk about what we've been playing. Retro style, I guess, but not, and well, hardly any of mine's retro, but we're going to talk about it. So I guess Sam, you can go first since you're on the list first.
All right. Well, I finished Unicorn Overlord, so that's something you'll be hearing more about probably. But I liked it a lot. It was a really good game. I enjoyed it. I even dipped a little bit into the new difficulty that unlocks when you beat it, just to see what that was like.
Nice.
I'd like to be able to finish it that way. It takes a while. So, failing that, I started up another game that I had sort of queued up that I had purchased recently, and that's Ender Lilies. I guess the full title is Ender Lilies, Quietus of the Nights. But very on topic for today because it is a Metroidvania style of game.
Yes.
Especially given its like aesthetics, it reminds me a lot of. But I think even the feel of it, the way it controls, it reminds me a lot of I think Ori, and Hollow Knight, kind of more modern indie Metroidvania type stuff. You feel a lot of that in the DNA. Some of the Dark Souls type influence, like there's a kind of Estus Flask sort of deal where you get yours back when you rest and save, and that respawns all the enemies. No, there's just auto mapping like a normal thing.
I mean, that's kind of like the one thing that really pulls me away from. Dang it, what is it? We just talked about it.
Hollow Knight?
Just mentioned it. Hollow Knight, yes. You have to find the guy that makes the maps, and I don't know. I
really depend on a good map a lot of times. I'm not very good at figuring out where I've been or where I go. I'll be like, oh, I've been here already before, like 6 times. Where am I going?
Yeah.
So the other sort of interesting thing about Ender Lilies is the main character can't actually do a lot on her own, but she summons these like spirits that basically are all your attacks. It makes all your different like abilities a little bit more visually interesting. because they're almost like summons in some cases, where you can kind of separate from them and move away from them afterwards. But a lot of them are effectively just like your basic one is just this. I think he's called like the Umbral Knight, and he just appears right on top of you and swings a sword for a 3-hit combo,
Nice.
up to 3 hits. So it's basically like your main character swinging a sword, although it's a pretty generous hitbox. I think that's one of the reasons it reminds me of Ori, the second Ori game. The first Ori game had the weird like auto aiming projectile thing.
Yeah.
But the second one had like a light sword. And I also played some Dokapon Kingdom this Sunday with my oldest nephew, so that was a lot of fun.
I was going to say, have you played enough of Ender Lilies to want to play the sequel yet? Like, does it feel like it's something?
I think so. Yeah, it's. I don't know that like those other games I compared it to. I wouldn't say that it's better than them, but like that's a big ask, right? To say something's like better than Ori and Hollow Knight.
Yeah, but it sounds like it's got its own.
I think it's pretty good. Yeah.
What do you?
I like the overall style of it too. I like the music. It's a lot of like soft piano stuff, so it's just like very non-grating.
Where do you kind of put the difficulty scale? Is it more of a tougher
fairly
thing?
difficult. I wouldn't say it's as difficult as Hollow Knight,
Okay.
and a lot of that is because death is incredibly forgiving. You lose nothing when you die. Some of the bosses are still hard, but you do lose basically nothing when you die. You don't lose your XP. You don't lose your map progress. You don't even lose items you've picked up. You literally don't lose any progress when you die. You just go back to the last bench you saved at.
Oh, okay.
So it's
But
more Metroid.
you still have everything you picked up before you died.
More Metroid style. Because
I guess so, yeah.
Hollow Knight's really more like Dark Souls.
But there is an experience system too.
Yeah. Where like you lose your.
There's an upgrade
contents. system
system and an experience point. You level up just by battling enemies. So
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to give this one a try at some time. Enough people have talked about it and make it sound interesting that I'll have to at least give it a go. It's been on sale a few times too, I think. Heck, it might be on sale right now. There's a sale going on. That isn't a game that I'm not playing, though. I did finish Unicorn Overlord, as we talked about. I've had my fill of the game. I don't want to go right back into it. I want to wait a little bit. But I do plan on playing on the other difficulty as well. But I've also realized that I need to put more time into Pokemon X if I'm going to try to get this done in the allotted time. Because it kind of got put on the back burner. And then I was trying to find something else to play on Switch. And like I started Fire Emblem Engage and just fell right off of it again. So I think that one's going to be a no-go for me. It really sucks because I bought like the big collector box and like I really wanted to love this game, but I'm just not feeling it.
Fire Emblem does that to you, man.
Yeah, it's hit or miss. I have found that. I did buy 2 more Fire Emblem games just today.
Although, as I was explaining it the other day, I think it was more the case that Fire Emblem and I had to break up because we couldn't just be friends. Fire Emblem wanted to make it something else.
You were done with tea time? Is that what you're saying?
Tried to put a ring on you.
Yeah. So, with the lack of wanting to play Fire Emblem Engage, I finally was like, well, I'm just gonna get my Portal out and I'm gonna start Spider-Man 2 because I've been putting that off as well.
That's a good time. That's a good time.
And then, in the midst of all that, yesterday they released the Fallout series on Prime. So Fallout's like that's my jam. Like I love Fallout. So I finished 2 episodes and I can gladly give it a ringing endorsement that is very Fallout-esque. Like they've done a very good job with the set design. Like I like that it's not trying to be the video game. Like it's still separated enough from the game to have its own stuff going on, but but at the same time, it's still very much the Fallout series. And I really, just from the preview, I've had a feeling I was going to enjoy it, but anymore, you never know. There's plenty of TV shows I've tried to like here lately and have fallen off too. So, but 2 episodes in, I'm enjoying it. So I'll keep you guys updated as I go.
Awesome. Well, I am also playing Unicorn Overlord, but I have not finished it, as I mentioned. I don't even know how far through I am or how many hours I put in. It feels like I've been playing for a long time, but I'm not sick of it by any stretch of the imagination. Right now, it just feels like most of my time comes on weekends. But I'm approaching the end of the elves country area, so I'm not sure how much more I have to go. I'm sure quite a bit yet.
You're 3/5 away from as far as continents go. So
yeah,
that's
right,
kind of a
right.
marker.
I just don't know if they're all as long as if they're all similar length, or if
they all feel very similar length.
Yeah.
The last continent felt kind of short, but I think it's just because I was plowing through it because I was already at a high enough level and my characters were just cleaning house at that point.
Right. Yeah. Once you get a nice combination, you figure out a good combo of characters and abilities and everything. Every now and then they'll come up across makeup of enemies that you're like, oh man, I'm not doing a whole lot of damage there, and switch some stuff out. But by and large, if you get a good variety on your team, you're going to be able to take out most things, or at least at the normal difficulty level anyway. I don't know about the higher difficulties, but
have you promoted a lane yet?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Why don't you do that? Like that's all you really need. Like,
yeah, he could take out. Yeah. So I'm like forcing myself
the game with him.
Right. Unless it's like the main story missions, like the liberation quests and stuff like that. I'm forcing myself not to take him out. His unit out.
He's broken, man.
Yeah. Well,
I hear all the complaints on for the multiplayer that pretty much if you are in an online match and they have him in their unit, you're pretty much going to lose. Like, unless you're using him also.
Yep. So playing through that, really enjoying it. Then also working my way through Legend of Zelda: Four Swords Adventure, which we just talked about recently on Topic. And just recording each of those levels and uploading them to my YouTube. Spider Shan 8, I think, if you are interested. And just really been enjoying that because it's been a long time since I've played through that game. I'm just doing it single player, but there's a lot of interesting things that they do in there. I just got to a level where you pick up a carrot, and if you pick up a carrot, you automatically start riding Epona, but there's 4 Eponas because, of course, every Link needs an Epona, and it's like you're just flying all over the screen, just mowing down enemies and stuff like that, and
so that's
bushes.
The 4 carrot.
The 4 carrot, yes, yeah,
like the 4 sword.
It splits Epona into 4. That's right. And then if you find carrots and bushes, then you can keep it going. Otherwise, it's a time thing, and when it runs out. But I'm like, I forgot that was even in the game. And then there's levels that are more like, use your brain to solve, these puzzles more than just mow down these enemies and stuff. So, but I'm having a great time with that. And even finding that there is some challenge in some of the levels so far. But yeah, having a good time with that. And then I'm kind of on the back burner, but still kind of every now and then I've been picking away at Tales of Arise. I do enjoy the Tales of series. And Arise, I think, is really good. It's one of those games that it's always kind of there, and I keep wanting to go back to it. But then something new and shiny comes out, and I get distracted for a little while. Then I kind of slowly pick away back at it. So, and I'm probably like 3/4 of the way through the game. So we'll get there. But yeah, that's basically what I've been playing when I've got a chance.
Nice. All right, Sam.
All right, well, that's what we've been playing. So how about time for the first Price is Retro of the season?
Right.
Let's do it.
Are you ready? Alright, if this is your first time playing Price is Retro, here's how we play. I'm going to list off 4 or 5 games. Everyone has to guess how much the lot is worth in total. Whoever is closest to the actual value wins the round. And everyone has a list. Everyone guesses on each other's list. But watch out for our trio of automated competitors, including returning from the Double Death, Poltergeist, our ghost competitor, who always guesses 300, along with our robot, Deus Ex Machina, who averages our guesses, and our new competitor, the dinosaur, whom I'm just going to call Retrosaurus until we come up with a better
Yeah,
name.
we're going to have to create another poll and get some names going from the community.
I think we had a poll for naming a dinosaur once, but I don't remember where that was.
Well, I think that was to name the dinosaur that was on the sticker.
That's right.
And I can't even
This is
remember.
a different dinosaur.
I can't even remember what his name
he's
was.
He's
now.
a Price is Retro competitor.
That's right.
But the dinosaur, because he is stuck in the past, guesses the average value of that system's games whenever they come up and adds those together.
Of their
So we've got a
original
spreadsheet that will do that
MSRP.
for us. And we are trying to beat this team of 3, so it'll be a little bit tougher for us to do that than when it was just one of them competing against us. But Shannon, since you are our newest host, would you like to go first?
Sure. All right. Okay, so I've got 5 games here, and you'll quickly be able to see there is a theme here that has nothing to do with anything. It just kind of popped into my head. So the first game is Spud's Adventure for the Game Boy Loose. Second game is VeggieTales, Larry Boy, and the Bad Apple for PlayStation 2 Complete. And Princess Tomato in the Salad Kingdom for the NES Loose. Holy Potatoes Compendium for the Switch Complete. And the last one is Quirk for the Game Boy Loose.
Okay, well, I've got about 272.
Okay.
Okay, let's see here. See, Sam, you said 272. So let me put that in. I'm guessing 310.
All right, well, between the two of you, at least, John's got it. The actual price is $786.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Way off.
Oh, that's...
Is it just Princess Tomato?
No, it's Spuds
It's
and...
Spuds, yeah. Spuds and Princess Tomato.
That Spuds was high, but not like crazy high.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
you want me to go through each of those a minute while you're figuring out what our nemesis we're guessing?
Yeah. No, I've got it. I mean, they were all... obviously, with those games being very spiked in value, the dinosaur only guessed 185.
All right.
And he would have been the only one close.
That's right. That's true.
All right, well, give us the breakdown.
Yeah, breakdown. Spud's Adventure for the Game Boy, $594. So that was the majority of it right there. VeggieTales, Larry Boy and the Bad Apple for PS2, $9. Princess Tomato and the Salad Kingdom is actually $157, so that one's actually come down a little bit from the past. Holy Potatoes Compendium for the Switch, a game I've never even heard of. $16 complete. And Quirk for the Game Boy, $10 loose. So all games about, potatoes and tomatoes, as it turns out. So potato, potato, tomato, tomato.
Potato, tomato. All right, John, since you won the round, you get to go next.
Okay.
Got to keep the suspense going. I don't want to let you just win 2 rounds and then,
Right.
the last round kind of doesn't mean a whole lot.
Oh, yeah. Hold on a sec. Forgot I got to reset the... this will be a lot smoother the next time we do it, but I got to reset the dinosaur. I'll remember to while we're doing the breakdown next time. All right. So the first game on my list is Castlevania Symphony of the Night for the PS1, complete in box. The second game is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, The Radical Rescue for the Game Boy loose. The third game is Guacamelee for the PS Vita, complete in box. The fourth game is Bloodstained Ritual of the Night for the PS4, complete in box. And I think Sam guessed first last time, so Shannon, you guessed first this time.
Yep.
All right. So I'm going with $250.
Okay. Sam, what do you have?
I've got $295.
$295.
It's $295, not $2.95.
Yeah.
If I have to be clear.
So the total of my lot is $287.88.
Well done, Sam.
Yeah, Sam's going to have that
I
one.
think that goes to me.
Yep. Because the Ghost is just... Well, since you undercut the Ghost by $5, you were closer than him.
Yep.
And then the robot would have been like around 270 something.
Mm-hmm.
And then Dinosaur was only at 190. MSRP is not very close.
Yeah,
with
he's coming pretty low.
Yeah, he's coming in low due to that, but that's all right. We're working him in. He's one of these days. It's going to be a list of games that aren't super valuable, and he's going to win one. Just watch.
That's right.
So the breakdown of my list is Castlevania Symphony of the Night for PS1 complete in box, 151.31.
Ooh, that killed me.
And then next is TMNT 3 Radical Rescue for the Game Boy loose is $69.99.
It's pretty close on that one.
Guacamelee for the PS Vita complete in box, $53. And Bloodstained,
I thought.
Bloodstained Ritual of the Night for the PS4 complete in box is a whopping $13.58.
I said 20 for that one, so I wasn't too far off, I guess.
You were close.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not a pricey game. All right. Well, my set is a theme all about... I guess they're not all strictly 4. I thought this initially for Season 4 to be about 4-player stuff. And so it's actually going to be all hardware. It'll make sense when I just get to it. Number 1 is the NES 4-score.
Ooh, okay.
So the multi-tap accessory for the NES allows you to play 4-player games. Second, the Super Multi-Tap for the Super Nintendo.
Are these
Nice.
loose or in a box?
These are all loose condition.
Okay.
These are all loose condition. Third, the multi-tap adapter for the PlayStation, also loose. And fourth, the 6-player multi-tap adapter. That's why I said sixth. I got my wires crossed there. Pun intended. The Sega Saturn 6-player multi-tap adapter, loose. And lastly, although it's not technically a multi-tap, it can function as one, the GameCube controller adapter for the Wii U. Because you can use it to connect 8 controllers.
Okay, what was the second one? Because I interrupted you.
The second one was the Super Multi-Tap
Okay.
for the Super Nintendo. They're all loose.
I don't know. This is going to be a tough one. I do not know hardware.
So I think it's my turn to go first.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I'm going to go 225.
225, okay.
And I'm going about 180.
180 and 225. The total is 159.28. So pretty close.
Yeah.
Shannon especially is pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see what the... I know the ghost is off.
And the
Well,
robot.
this
They're
one-
both high, so the robot's off.
But did the dinosaur pull together a win?
1, 2. Just trying to make sure that I got all of the systems. So in this case, yeah, we're going to count it as if they were games. The dino is over actually this time. He's at 265.
Okay.
And
Well, he'll get one of these days.
yeah, he will. He actually has the ability to get up there. So he's out, Ghost is out, and then also
And then we each one around.
the robot is also out because he would have guessed way higher.
So we each one around.
So we're gonna have
Humans prevail. I don't know who wins tonight, though.
let's see.
I think I had the closest
I
guess,
think
though.
you did.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did because Shannon destroyed us
Yeah.
with his list.
Yep.
You and Shannon were closer
If
than
we're still going by the single closest guess,
we are.
not
Yes,
the
single
average
closest
out of
guess.
all.
You were $7.12 off from my list,
Yeah.
and Shannon was $20.72 off of your list. So
Mm-hmm.
pretty close battle, but it looks like Sam is going to take the first win.
Gotta defend my title.
First win of season 4.
Keep the belt.
I got to know though, what was the breakdown of your list?
All right, the breakdown. There's not a huge variation among these. The NES 4 score is $29.99. Super Multi-Tap is $43.49. The PlayStation Multi-Tap is $6.79. That's the cheapest one by far. Sega Saturn 6-player is $43.12. And the GameCube controller adapter for the Wii U, $35.89.
That's a little higher than I expected on that one.
Yeah.
I guess when it's no longer when it's discontinued, the demand goes up.
Yeah, that's true.
Even with the Switch one,
I just have a third party.
I will say that if you go to Smash tournaments, people will sometimes get upset if you don't have the official one.
Oh,
If
really?
You get
Oh.
like one of the knockoff, the off-brand ones.
Well, that's what I have.
We can't use your setup, bro.
Well done.
All right, so I need to. Well, Sam's the winner. I'm going to work on the the display of the win log to keep track of our wins after this episode. So,
all right,
that will be kept track of. I have to add the Rampage team in there as well instead of just calling it by one of the names. But yeah, Sam's the winner. And then,
do we have a trivia card?
Yeah, we do. But I think we're going to
switch
title over to Shannon's cards because I think we've done all mine or close to it.
Yes.
I don't want to risk multi doing the cards.
Yeah, so I actually found a box of video game trivia quiz cards that were marked as used, but the box was still sealed. So we'll go with these. Everything was still in plastic and everything. All right, we'll see if these are any harder or any much different than John's were. Okay, first question. Replacing Tiger Woods, which golfer became the new title athlete of the PGA Tour video game series in 2015?
No idea.
Yeah, I wouldn't know this either.
Name any other golfers.
Right.
Was there a guy named Cole? I don't know.
No, not even close.
Nope.
Answer is Rory Ilroy. I'm probably saying that wrong, and somebody that knows golf can probably correct us.
Drew's reaching in and slapping us.
We're off to a great start. Yep, we're off to a great start.
All right. Well, this one is a little more retro, I think, too. This next question. So, which Japanese fighting arcade game's name translates to Iron Fist?
Tekken.
That's correct.
Yep.
All right.
So we're
1 out of 2.
1 out of 2.
1 out of 2.
50%.
It's the funniest thing with trivia because so many of it's like you know it or you don't.
Yep.
Like, it's like, oh, that was easy.
You can't. You're right. It's always easy when you know the answer.
Yep. That's how it goes. All right. Well, we'll take a short break and then we'll get to our show topic, which is the 30th anniversary of Super Metroid. See you on the other side. Back to it. So, actually very close to the North American date this week. Super Metroid, originally released April 18th, 1994. So just next week in North America. A little bit earlier in Japan on March 19th, same year. And PAL regions July 28th. So, of course, this is not the first Metroid game, but I always think of it as the game that kind of solidified what Metroid is.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. There were 2 games before it, though. Metroid 2 on the Game Boy and Metroid on the NES, of course. And this is also the first game actually directed by Yoshio Sakamoto. So he'd worked on the previous games, but this was his first time in the director role for a Metroid game. I think he had a couple director credits prior to this. But he's kind of the guy that we think of as the Metroid guy at Nintendo.
Yeah.
Because he's been heavily involved. He's pretty much been the guy for Metroid going forward. And obviously a big step up featuring a map, for one thing, which it has over the original Metroid.
That's what I'm talking about.
The ability to fire in all directions while moving. And, of course, vastly improved sound, graphics, and really just a step up overall in presentation.
Yeah, this game is remarkable for so many things. I mean, when you really think about we say advancements, over the first game. This game is like miles ahead of the first game. Like, if you had somebody play both of them that didn't know what Metroid was, they might almost not even think they're in the same series. Like this is so much of an upgrade. And just the fact that this game birthed basically a genre of gaming
Yes.
that we still use today, like the term.
Yeah, and in some ways, I mean, Metroid itself on the NES did that, right?
Yeah.
But I think Super Metroid really is what made it work. It was the prototype, right?
Yeah.
Even more pronounced, I think, in this case. But I think I mentioned I almost feel that way a little bit about, say, A Link to the Past compared to the first Zelda. I think the first Zelda holds up better than the first Metroid.
Agreed.
Yeah.
But all the same, I think that same kind of relationship is there.
Well, it kind of took what was there before, right? Like it's almost like a bare bones. The skeleton was there, and it really filled out the rest of the body, right? And made it kind of almost perfected, what was there into a more robust, full game, if you will.
I you can give credit to Metroid because without Metroid, you wouldn't have Super Metroid in a sense. But I think you could also argue that if Metroid hadn't become a series of video games, like if we never got Super Metroid, I don't think that we would have all these Super Metroid-like games come out. I think this particular game in the series is what kind of propelled all these other game designers into wanting to build a game like Metroid. I don't think the original Metroid was so profound that everyone wanted to copy it right off the bat. Otherwise, we would have had other Metroid-like games on the NES, or a lot more of them. I know there's a handful. Castlevania 2 is very Metroid-like, but those are very few and far between. But as soon as we get Super Metroid, now you have Symphony of the Night, and you start having all these games that give you the ability to kind of traverse and explore maps and
even Symphony of the Night was quite a bit later.
Yeah.
Let alone kind of the indie Metroidvania. Really, at that point, it was a revival.
Yeah.
All these indie game Metroidvanias, even the usage of the term Metroidvania seemed to really take off when Metroid and Castlevania both kind of were dormant for a while.
Yeah, because I guess Symphony of the Night was like 97, right? I think.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
96, 97. So it was a couple years later. And this game is probably been cited as an inspiration for Symphony of the Night.
Yeah, 97.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. Like, I Metroid's fine. I like the original Metroid game. It for what it all intents and purposes, like it had to exist to get where we are today. But I think that Super Metroid is the one that created the genre in a sense that everyone saw how good it was and what you could do with it, and they're like, oh man, this is it. Like this has a map now, and it has all these unique features, and it really defined how you now have to have an ability to get somewhere else on the map.
Mm-hmm.
Which I know that was something that came from the original Metroid game, but it's even more present in Super Metroid. Like to the fact you have to have an upgrade to go anywhere almost in this one.
Right. Well, I think that, games where that you kind of had to get an item to progress or whatever before tended to be more linear, right? Like you go in, like even Legend of Zelda, you go into the next dungeon, you get the item, use the item in that dungeon, then, sometimes you'll have to use that item then to get to the next dungeon in line.
Or Zelda 2.
Right. Whereas opposed to in the Metroid, and especially what I feel like is done so well in Super Metroid is the fact that it's not so linear. And so you might be like, how in the world, you might see an area and you're like, okay, I know there's something there. I know I could, but I can't figure out how to get there. And then later on you get an item and you're like, oh, okay, now I get it. Now every time I solve whatever, I can go back and use this item now to explore that area.
Yeah.
And I think one of the interesting things about Super Metroid in particular is how many different sequence breaks exist in it. Partly because it's been speedrun so many times that people have studied it closely. But I think it's really just impressive that not only all these sequence breaks exist, but none of them soft lock the game, which any other game you would expect that to be the case, right? If you it feels like you are getting away with something when you pull some of this stuff off. But at the same time, the game works when you do. And actually, it feels like the game is rewarding you for mastering the game to where you can get away with this thing instead of, oh, you just actually broke the game by doing something that wasn't intended. There's a kind of, I guess, elasticity to the whole game where it can restore its shape even when you stretch it.
Yeah, it's impressive. It's impressive moment of programming and everything else. I mean, the game is definitely well designed, well thought out, and it almost seems like when you find those ways, and I've never been good at kind of breaking sequence of games, let alone a Metroid game, but it almost seems as if it's intentionally done. If you find something, but the way that it works together and doesn't end up, messing up your game or soft locking you, it almost seems like, oh, maybe this was put in here intentionally, for people to figure out.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And as much as we talk about how much of an upgrade the gameplay of Super Metroid is, the sound is even 10 times the gap. Because whenever you play NES Metroid, and you get the very limited sound chip of the NES, and the music is there and it's atmospheric to a point, as best as it can be, I guess. When you play Super Metroid, that game is alive. Just the dedication to make that game feel as eerie as it does in certain points, and as a child, this is gonna if you're not old enough, this is gonna scare you probably. Going through there's parts of this game you're not gonna want to visit because it's how the music sounds when you get there.
Well, the zones feel. I was just gonna say the zones feel so distinct. Because of the music, because of the sound design, and I think that I place this right up there with Link to the Past as two of the best well-designed sound for the Super Nintendo, hands down. It's just done so well. It's amazing. It actually does it better than even some modern games.
There's a blurb I found from the sound programmer and composer for the game, Kenji Yamamoto, who is also the sound effect creator. And he actually cites that as part of how he approached the work with this is a translation, obviously, but with a sound programmer's ear, a sound effect creator's ear, and the approach methodology and theory of a composer. And I think that's just the kind of thing you don't get for game music anymore, because you just hire a composer and it's just a composer now, right? It's probably two different people.
Yeah, he's wearing a lot of hats, is what he's saying here.
And but I think it is just one of those examples of things you see, especially in retro games, especially earlier ones, where the limitations actually drive a lot of creativity, especially when it comes to sound, but graphics too, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and I mean the NES the Super Nintendo had a decent sound chip, but it was by no means a powerhouse. Some of the sounds that come out of Super Nintendo games still amaze me. We talk about Plock all the time. I don't know how that soundtrack even was able to be produced by a Super Nintendo. When you get down to it and you listen to it. In fact, I mean,
Nobody
Nintendo
does.
didn't believe that it came from a Super Nintendo until they played it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, similar. You got the Donkey Kong Country games, which do a nice job of that too.
Yeah,
Mm.
it's definitely a fresh, like, even being around and playing these games when they came out, like when you compared them to something that like Sonic the Hedgehog had good music, but most games on Sega were not known for having great sound.
Right.
So
No.
you could really appreciate the kind of effort that was put into Nintendo's first party titles specifically for sound, but even some others, as we've mentioned, third party games. But this game's definitely like top notch, puts you in the mood. There's never a time where the sound feels off. Music always feels perfect for the environment that you're in, and like you said, it's always different. Like there's always something going on. There's always a different music for each zone that you get to, and even just the sound effects. All those things are really good too.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, I think attention to detail is one of the things that really just stands out so much about Super Metroid, even after all this time. I kind of talked about how the game still holds together so well, even when you sort of break it. But even just like all those little things, like it's still blows my mind. I didn't know about it until much later. But the one boss in Cimeridia, I forget his name. The one that like has the electrical thing on the walls.
Oh yeah.
And there's like a trick where you can just like electrocute him.
Oh gosh,
that's just like bonkers that that's in there.
I totally forgot about that.
Right. Yeah.
Or going back to at the end of the game, going back to save the little friendly critters, the little monkeys and the ostrich.
Yep.
That you can do that. That they're in a little space, and you can free them, which you should always do.
That's right. Don't be a monster. Make sure you free them.
That was put in there for Dan. That's like a callback to Sonic the Hedgehog. You guys save little critters at the end of the level.
There you go.
And I like your next note here on the fact that we didn't get another Metroid, a 2D Metroid game until Fusion in 2002. Nintendo couldn't even beat Super Metroid, like as far as development goes. Like,
well, they just noped out of making one for the N64. Yeah. So
that's what I'm saying. They're like, we can't do it justice. Like, we can't do a sequel justice, so we might as well not put one out. Like, this game is perfect. Took 8 years to figure out what they were going to do with the franchise afterwards.
Right, and honestly, to me, Super Metroid is still my favorite Metroid game. I don't think it's been toppled. There's definitely other good ones. I like the Game Boy Advance games. I'm one of those people that just finds Fusion a little bit too linear. And I'm not a fan of the parry. Like I tolerate it, but I'm ultimately not a fan of the parry. I think it was better in Dread than it was in Samus Returns, though.
It was.
So I like everything about
it was used more.
Yeah,
used more with better moderation.
I like everything about Samus Returns. The parry is okay. But it's one of those things to where they did a okay enough job to make it to where it's not 100% necessary all the time in the game. Like, it's not a mechanic that you have to use all the time to defeat enemies. I mean, there are, like quick time reaction stuff for bosses that requires you to use the parry. But whenever I was just cruising around in the world, I hardly ever used the parry. It was only whenever there was enemies that require it.
Right.
But I do like how Metroid 2 is set up. Like, I like the map. I like how you're learning about Metroids. It's almost like a little science book as you're going through there. Like you're learning the different stages of Metroids. Like I always, as a kid, like I loved bugs and stuff, and this is like right up my alley. I was like learning stuff, fictional or not, but Super Metroid is still the cleanest Metroid game made, probably still. Dread is probably right there as far as how it feels. But there's just something about Super Metroid. Like it feel like every action is tight. All the enemy hitboxes are like perfect. You never have any issues there. All the platforming is great. I mean, just how Samus moves is perfect. So I can't complain. I mean, this is probably my favorite one still too. I do like the Game Boy Advance games, but like you said, Fusion is pretty linear. You're gonna figure it out pretty quickly. And Zero Mission's really good too, but it's just a remake. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a remake of the first game.
But it's definitely if you're only gonna play one, either the first one or Zero Mission, play Zero Mission.
I'm not downplaying it, but I'm just saying that it's not its own game.
Right.
It's still a remake.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, with the second one with Samus Returns, the only thing I really remember about playing the original version on Game Boy is being lost forever and never actually finding my way through to the end. Like I never could figure out exactly where I was messing up, where I was going wrong, and got lost in that game forever.
For a Game Boy game,
it's huge, and the sprites are big, and you can only see so much of the screen because of that. It just it wasn't until the 3DS remake that I actually could get through Samus Returns. So Super Metroid was the first one that I actually beat without the need. To be fair, I don't think I ever beat the original Metroid without using a code of some kind either.
It's a very difficult game.
Yes.
Not necessarily because of its gameplay difficulty, just it's difficult to control Samus a lot of times.
Yes.
In that game.
Well, it helps having more directions, having the diagonal directions and everything in Super Metroid helps a lot. It feels much more fluid. And with Super Metroid 2, it always felt fair. Like there are some parts that are difficult, but not like unfairly punishing difficult. So it's something that with practice you're going to be able to figure out and get through, which is pretty true of most Metroid 2D Metroid games going forward. From Super Metroid on, is that you're going to be able to figure out patterns. You're going to be able to practice. Like it might be hard, but it's fair, and you can learn it.
Yeah, and Super Metroid is a better balance, I feel.
Yeah.
Like Dread,
the biggest points of frustration you're going to have are probably figuring out where to go.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
And sometimes with some bosses, but like I said, those you just got to learn the patterns, and then once you learn patterns of bosses, the game actually becomes a lot easier as far as difficulty of enemies goes.
Yeah,
because those patterns are going to hold true, and once you know how to work through them, you're never going to struggle. You're going to know it every time. So,
and I feel like Metroid Fusion had a lot of this same DNA. Like once you figured things out, the difficulty level goes down. The Prime games are a totally different thing. But Dread, I felt like it had like some spots where like it would get more difficult, and then it would go back to being easy again, and then it learning the areas that you had to traverse with the Emmys was a nightmare.
Right.
But after you figured it out, you were like, okay, this is okay. But I think having to rely on that timing or that reaction. that you had to-
Counterattack, yeah.
Counterattack. I don't know that I ever even succeeded to do that once.
Nope. Well, not with
And the
not
fact
not
that it was
because I
random.
figured it out. It always felt I like, oh, I actually got it that time. Okay, and then like you stunned it, and then like 5 seconds later it caught me again. I'm like, well, I'm out that time.
Well, that's what I was going to say too. I don't ever felt that it was particularly useful if you did get it, because you still wouldn't know where you were at and you were going to get caught anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh man. But yeah, no, we wouldn't. Again, we would. It's similar. We wouldn't even have Dread if it wasn't for this game, which is, sad to think about.
Yeah.
This is great. This game brought us all these. We wouldn't have Ori, probably. We wouldn't have Hollow Knight. All those games have gameplay that came from this game, or aspects that came from this game. And I would even argue that a lot of those newer games even take notes from the sound, like just being atmospheric in the world. All that stuff comes from Metroid.
Well, yeah, and I think a lot of that comes to having such a good overall map design.
Yeah.
That, because if that wasn't there, right, I think a lot of even game developers would take away the lesson from that would be, oh, well, you can't do this like open-ended platformer thing. Like, players need linear levels to steer them, or else they'll just get lost and they'll get frustrated, and they don't want to backtrack through things. One of the things to this day I would say separates like a top-notch Metroidvania from a lesser one is the ability, as you gain new abilities and backtrack through areas you've been before, to go through them faster.
Yeah.
Not just because you're better at the game and you're more skilled at it, but also because you gain all these abilities that allow you to take shortcuts that you couldn't before.
You suddenly start feeling a lot more powerful and kind of confident.
It aids the ability of it aids the feeling of progression, but it also cuts down on the fact that going through the same area you've been through 3 times is kind of boring.
Right.
Well, now it's shorter every time. And you get this little like surge of, oh yeah, this feels great because now I can just, I have the screw attack and the space jump now. I can literally just fly through.
Even just the double jump. Like once you get the double jump, and you're just like I'm good. Now I can just make it.
That's every Metroidvania. Feels great when you get the double jump.
But yeah. No, this is like, I'm with you, Sam. I think this is probably still my favorite one. I was really sad that it took Dan so long to I couldn't believe that he hadn't played through that game whenever we first started RetroLogic up.
It's a staple, right? That's
why
it's always there.
And that was like
one
of
of
our first ones that we did the crossover on.
Yeah, but that's why anytime Nintendo does Super Nintendo stuff, Super Metroid's always there. It's there on Virtual Console.
Super Mario World, Super Metroid, and
they're on the Super Nintendo
Link's
Mini.
Adventure. Link to the Past, those are like...
Forget the name of your favorite game.
Yeah, exactly. Ooh, jeez.
Must be getting
late. It's late.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man.
Well, on that, I don't know if we wanted to go any further into our experience with the game. I will note I played this game much later. It's not a game I grew up with in my collection. I played it on Wii Virtual Console. That's how I played it first. Did you guys play this when it came out?
It wasn't real. Yeah, I played it during the days of the Super Nintendo. I actually did not buy it, but I borrowed it plus the guide from a buddy of mine, and that's how I got to first play through it. Because there was only so many games you could get back in those days. If it wasn't your birthday or Christmas, it was you didn't go buy a new game every few weeks like so many people do now.
Excuse me. This was a rental for me several times.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I mentioned a couple shows ago that I first knew who Samus was thanks to Captain N, which fortunately she was a character that was actually done like proper justice on. It was actually the comics that I was exposed to.
Yeah, I was gonna say she was probably. You didn't really see her much in the show. I'm trying to remember if you ever saw her in the show proper.
There might have been like
Maybe it was only in the comics, but the comics I had featured Samus a lot.
Yeah,
Oddly enough,
because you had Mother Brain.
Just had Mother Brain.
You had Mother Brain, and that was kind of the world of Metroid was through her.
They did Samus a lot less dirty than they did Mega Man or
Kid
Push.
Yeah, Pet, yeah. Agreed.
You're gonna have to talk to Samus and figure out what she uses to lube up her suit because your chair is like super creaky. It needs some oil.
Yeah. It does.
Mine does too. So like, try not to move. But yeah,
I'm just getting itchy there.
I'm gonna send you a can of oil to lube up your chair.
Well, we do have some input from our community couch. The community couch is lively once again. We have chased away the bear that was hibernating there for the winter, and
cleaned it all
life
up.
has returned to it now that spring is here. So we have some questions about Super Metroid, starting with TX Trey, who asks. Says he's never played Super Metroid more than an hour because he got stuck and gave up. He's beaten Dread, Fusion, and Returns Remake. Should I walk or run into playing Super Metroid? Does it do anything better than the games that came after it? Or was it remarkable for being the first of the great Metroid games?
Run. Just
run.
do it. It's if you beat Dread, it's not. I would say, if you feel like you need a guide, if you're going to get stuck, or if that's fine. Use whatever you need to if you feel like you are getting lost. Yeah. But if you were able to get through all those other games, there's no reason you should have any particular issue this time trying it. It's remarkable, of course, for being the start of what we think of as modern 2D Metroids, if you want to say that, but it also I still say that it has the best atmospheric just areas and everything. I just feel like they're very distinct, and they just feel different. I don't know how else to say it, but I say just go for it. Go for it.
It's definitely worth playing.
Yeah, I think I obviously think it's worth playing. And I would say if you get stuck, you can use a guide. That's especially if it's at the point where you're willing to just give up on the game. Like, no, use a guide if that's what it takes.
Well, I mean,
especially
to with
progress.
A game that's made to try to confuse you on where to go. Mm-hmm. If you need to use a guide to figure out where that one hitch is, then you just...
some of it is just learning, what... I think there is, and there was some other input on this as well in the comments that follow, but using guides responsibly, there's a bit of an art to that. I think I've talked before about using rewind or save states responsibly, too. I think there is a point where you are kind of depriving yourself of something about how the game was meant to be played if you over rely on that stuff. But at the same time, it's it's there for a reason, right? But some of the fun in these games is the exploration, and you don't want to. This is something I think modern games miss a lot of. When everything has a waypoint, and the game's just pointing you where to go all the time. It takes so much of the actual fun out of it. But I get the frustration too, so you have to balance that. It's something I think Dread did a fantastic job of, was guiding you without it being obvious. I think Super Metroid does a little bit less of that. But for the standards of the time, that was a lot more normal. I think people were just kind of used to games being more opaque.
games that didn't tell you anything.
You just learned to, you just learned to bomb across the floor of every room,
Yeah.
Just always shoot the corners of it, shoot every wall.
Yep.
It's just what
every
you do.
pixel hunt every room.
Find something.
sometimes you just get to that.
I mean, you might have to use a super bomb on a certain clear tube that was not obvious to anyone, I don't think, but that's just how it works sometimes.
This is a first that I think that Dan has wrote into the community couch.
Yep. Do you want to read Dan's comment?
Yeah. He said he played it for the first time ever a few years ago, and it's undoubtedly one of my favorite games of all time now. But I didn't play it without some help. There are a few points in the game where what you need is to do next is unintentionally opaque. He says, I own the paper guide, so I limited myself to that, but if you get stuck, just look it up. The game's amazing and 100% worth playing. So yeah, this is kind of in reaction to Texas Trey asking about the game. And this is what Dan spent, he streamed this whole game, and he got to the point where he was having some people helping him out in the stream on where to go with some things, but
said you can freeze enemies with the freeze beam and jump on top of them. I'll just throw that hint out there.
So
yep.
Dan gives it an endorsement as well, even though he's not here.
That's right.
Yep. We also got some similar comments from the other Caparillo brother.
Yep.
Shannon, you want to read Octorock's?
Yeah, he said, as an adult with normal adult responsibilities, there are plenty of retro games that will give you a much more enjoyable experience just using a guide when you don't have endless childhood summers and afternoons filled with nothing but free time to explore every single pixel of a game. And that's true, and I feel that way sometimes about even difficulty levels. Yes, sometimes it's like, okay, this game might be a little more enjoyable if I kick up the difficulty a little bit, but there are other times where I'm like, you know what, this is a game where I am really here for the story and maybe the gameplay, and I don't need to worry about, and I'm not here to replay the same area 42 times just to try to get through it. So yes, as I've gotten older, I've relaxed my feelings on needing to play at a certain difficulty level.
Let's see. Solo's next.
Difficulty is great.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I guess it's back to me. Solo something says after. I guess he's just solo now. I always want to add. I mentally add to something.
That's right.
Yes.
Afterwards, it's just
He'll
solo.
always
now.
be solo something.
Solo
Yeah.
says after
solo.
coming off Metroid and many summer afternoons firing your way through an underground maze, do you feel Super Metroid, in comparison, was an easier game to finish since you had a working foundation? I think it was definitely easier to find your way around because you had a map.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, even in just the movement of Samus made things easier. There's like some platforming in the original Metroid game that is just like god awful.
Oh,
it's like
going
trying
up
to
some
platform
of those rooms.
on things that are moving constantly whenever you can barely control where she's going to go after you jump.
Yep.
Like
And falling all the
rough.
way back
Even
down.
just
to the
like
bottom.
that last sequence up to Mother Brain, I think I remember being like real.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, I played Metroid even later than Super Metroid.
Oh, you played him in reverse,
so,
which made it even 10 times worse.
Probably. I wouldn't say there's just quality of life things that make it feel a little easier, but it also just feels a little bit better playing it.
Yeah.
So, but it's a bigger game though too. So there's a lot more to explore and get lost in though as well.
It definitely is all. It's easily twice the game that the original one is.
Listen, basically the entire map of the original Metroid is in Super Metroid. So
Yeah,
if you really want,
essentially.
you still have that area.
Mike writes, it's funny because it also works. But he writes us and says, which genre needs to make a comeback? Claymation games, 3D fighters that are very realistic, Guitar Hero games, Hong Kong style bullet time shooters, World War II first person shooters that are not multiplayer, or mech sims.
That's a very specific genre list there.
Yeah, I think Guitar Hero is already making its way back with Fortnite. Because my kids play that constantly. And they play it on a controller, which it would just drive me insane to be playing a Guitar Hero-like game using a controller. It just doesn't even seem right.
I think they're coming out with new instruments, though, aren't they? I think they're starting to sell instruments again.
Well, yeah, they have a guitar for sale or for pre-order now, I believe, for the game. For the last 6 months, they've been playing with their controllers, and that drives me bonkers. And Sam, you said you want mech sims?
Yeah. I don't know if they need, I mean,
like Steel
Armored Core
Battalion
6,
level?
I assume counts. Not enough people played it, though, so,
Let's just say you want like
yeah,
Steel Battalion level mech
that,
sims,
like
or
Steel
you want
Battalion
Mech
or Mech Warrior or I don't know, Gun Griffin, something.
Whew.
I want it
you
all.
don't want claymation games to come back?
Claymation mech sims.
There you go.
That's it.
Give us what we really want.
We're blending now.
They
could even be.
I would definitely be all over that.
That would be kind of cool. I like the style of claymation. Like, I like the look. I think that especially a really nice looking HD claymation game could be really cool. But I don't know that I'd want it to play like the claymation games of old. But I think of something like a how they keep doing different things with Yoshi. Crafty and woolly, and like a claymation Yoshi game actually might be kind of fun. I just with some of the animation.
Part of me does want to object that an art style is not a genre of game.
I know, but that's what I'm throwing in here.
That's a whole rabbit hole, and to some people it is.
No, that's why I mentioned it, because that's why I was saying I don't really know that I want to play games that played like the claymation games, but I like the art style. So if I could, take the art style but change the genre, but yeah, I guess that doesn't work with this question.
Do we get a Wallace and Gromit game if we choose claymation?
There you go.
Well, I mean, it could be any style, right? Like, even if you look at just interplay claymation games, you had Claymates and Clay
That's
Fighter.
true.
Those are two different genres.
True.
Yeah, they were two totally different games.
All right. Well, I'll go with claymation games and hope that we get one that is a lot of fun to play.
So I said we're going to blend here. We want a 3D fighter that includes mechs that are made out of clay. How about that?
And you control them with Guitar Hero instruments.
Yeah, there we go. Make that.
I think this is the perfect revival of Joy Mech Fight. Actually,
yes,
yeah,
I could totally see a claymation Joy Mech Fight.
Yeah, that actually be kind of cool.
And it's 3D, so like you can go around in an environment and fight. I can see that. Playing with a Guitar Hero controller might be a little bit more difficult to do.
Yeah. All right,
hit us up with that last one Presto's got.
Yeah, so Presto Magnificent. Name 5 franchises that are better than Super Metroid. Well, just, if he's going to make
that there are 5.
I mean, I will, of course, to nobody's surprise, say Legend of Zelda series. I think is better. And quite honestly, personally, I would rather play a 2D Super Mario Brothers game than Super Metroid if I was forced to pick between the two. I don't know. What about you guys?
A part of me has actually always preferred the Castlevania side to the Metroid games. I don't know if that's because I played them first, and I played some later ones first. After having played Super Metroid, though, I don't know. Like there are things it just does better as well. But Castlevania's up there for me. Mega Man's up there for me, but Mega Man has a lot of lows too. Like if I'm trying to rate Mega Man as a franchise, like the average is actually probably kind of middling.
I was gonna say, what's the average?
It just has some high highs.
And there's just so few. Considering Metroid's age, there's a lot fewer games, but they're by and large really good quality.
Yep.
I mean, Dragon Quest is better than Metroid. I would say Xenoblade, but that Sam would lose his cool over there.
No, oh, Xenoblade.
There are definitely days where I would pull a Xenoblade game out to play over Metroid, especially if I've just recently played Metroid. Metroid's one of those that like I have to do it in I have to have some time in between my Metroids.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not necessarily asking for 8 years, but I need at least a couple of years in between my Metroid games, and Nintendo does just fine at doing that.
Right?
Sometimes a little bit longer than I asked for.
Is Plock a franchise? It's only one game.
But he's got a comic book. He had a comic book.
I mean, I would definitely, without a doubt, say Donkey Kong Country.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I'll even throw the average down by throwing Donkey Kong 64 in there. Like, just 5 great Donkey Kong Country games just outweighs everything else.
I think if Dan was here, he would say Sonic.
No, not Sonic. That's even worse than Xenoblade. Come on. That's crazy talk.
Dan would be arguing for Sonic
Crazy
in here
people.
somehow. I think we named quite a few there. So, I don't know. Metroid's definitely not a franchise to forget about. It's definitely a worthwhile. If you haven't played Dread yet, like go play that game. Mm-hmm. That game, just the polish on it is amazing.
I may say I still prefer Super Metroid, but like I have to think about it. There's definitely things Dread does better.
Of those two would be the closest.
Yeah. They feel they feel similar in a lot of ways. Yeah.
That last boss is way tougher than anything in Super Metroid.
Yeah. Yeah, Super Metroid, honestly, not that many bosses are tough. There are memorable ones, though.
Yeah.
Shoutouts to Crocomire. I love Crocomire. He needs to.
We get a good look at they redid a lot of the first game's bosses, and they make them look fantastic because they're in 16-bit greatness. But I definitely have way more memory of like Super Metroid Kraid. And stuff over the original NES game's attempt at making bosses for Metroid.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that's our community couch. You want to close us out, Sam?
All right.
We can go to bed.
And if you have questions, you can always submit them to the community couch. It is open for business.
And they don't even have to be related to our topic. I do want to say
that.
Yeah,
you can
if you just want to ask a question,
stuff like Mike did.
Yeah.
Ask about claymation.
That's right.
Mike will never give us a question about our topic. It's guaranteed.
Guaranteed.
Make us think.
Thank you for listening to the RetroLogic podcast. We are proudly part of the Nintendo Dads family of podcasts. If you like what you hear, you're welcome to jump into our friendly and 100% non-toxic Discord community And you can find links to everything at our website, retrologic.games. Have a wonderful night. Bye.
Bye now.
Bye.